transforming lives.
Inspiring stories from educators worldwide.
Impact happening worldwide. Your transformation starts here.
All right, welcome to the Transforming Lives podcast. I'm your host, Tony Kimball, and I'd like to welcome you to the show tonight. We have a series going on entitled 50 Educators from 50 States, guys. Listen, man, this thing is moving fast like a locomotive, right? But the joys of it, the great thing about this is, and I definitely want to say to educators, we have a skill set that we use inside of a classroom, inside of a school. But guys, I'm telling you, this skill set that I've learned, that you've learned, it's definitely helping me out with this podcast. Well, guys, I have another guest on, and here's what we're doing. We have the great state of South Carolina. Okay, now they were pretty good in football. I'm a football guy. They were pretty good in football. University of South Carolina. Let me say that. But here's the thing. You just never know how you connect with people. Well, my next guest, we had a little pre-conference call, and I was trying to, remember, how did we connect? It's all about this idea of networking. My next guest, and I'm gonna bring on, he's the founder of the Pivot School, and he's transforming education through innovation, career-oriented learning. He's rooted in the ATL. All right, he has deep ties in South Carolina. Anthony's passion for education stems from his formative experience and dedication to community development with a background in special education, leadership, and then also he focuses in on school culture as an administrator. Anthony is committed to creating a safe and impactful learning environment. He's currently participating in the South Carolina's Public Charter School Incubator Program. He continues to champion educational excellence. He's the author of The Day Jake Went to College. Anthony inspires youth, uplifts and underserved communities through his leadership and vision. Guys, I want to welcome on to the stage my next guest, Mr. Anthony Bowden.
Man, what's going on, Tony?
Good, sir. Good. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great.
Well, good deal. Usually I kind of lead this thing off by asking the question, how is the weather where you are?
Weather is good, man. Weather is good. We got a little snow back home in Georgia for a few days before I get out of here and get back to South Carolina. But got a lot of snow. Had a little snow day for the kids, but everything is seen to, disappear now. But we're back good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good deal. The thing about it is, of course, I'm in Mississippi, and if it snows, everything shuts down. Like, it's just like, so when I was I had a little spurt in North Carolina, in the western part of North Carolina, it started snowing. They was just like, they kept going. And I'm like, when are we going to shut this down? So that's unique to hear. Well, good deal. So I want to jump right into it. I was able to look at, your website, and I began to look at your school. So I need to let the viewers know, what led you to start the Pivot School in South Carolina? Like fill us in. I need to know what's going on here.
Yeah, man. So before we even jump into that, man, I just want to take you back into kind of like how I got my start into education, right?
Okay.
And so, for me, education is something that I tell people this all the time. You don't choose education. Education chooses you. Point blank, period. Right. It has to be in your heart, right? And I never ran from, who I was and what I wanted to do for kids, right? And so, man, went to college. Always, like I said, I always knew I wanted to help kids. I just didn't know how, right? And so got a job in Verizon, hated it, cried every day, right? Met my mentor, and he was working at DC Public Schools at the time.
Yeah.
And so, good brother. And I was telling him, he was like, man, you're super passionate about education. I'm like, yeah, man, I know this is my calling. It's my passion. This is what I was put here to do. And so I called him about every day for about 6 months. And he helped me get on with DC Public Schools. And the rest was kind of history, right? And so jumped into special education, compliance at that. Right, it was a whole new world for me.
Oh,
Yeah. But it's funny too, Tony, because I'm super thankful that I got that experience. Right, so many people are in education; they have no idea about special education, let alone compliance. So it
right.
put a lot of stuff in my bag that I was able to use now, at the pivot schools and just different arenas in my life. And so, yeah, did that for a while. Worked in compliance, and the beautiful thing about that job was I was working inside the schools and also a central office. So again, I'm taking everything in, I'm learning and doing all of these different things. And so I remember one day going into a school, there was a young boy. He looked like me, I looked like him. He looked at me, I looked at him. And without even saying anything, Tony, he was just like, "I need you in here with me." And
Okay.
yeah, and so I was like, I got to get inside the classroom. I felt like my skill set was more geared towards being hands-on inside the school building. So
Yeah.
went back to school, got my master's from NYU, and what we know is social work, right? And
Yeah.
so that, and I had previously had an educational leadership degree, but I wanted to learn more about what this SEL thing, this social emotional learning was. It was coming to the forefront. There were a lot of kids that I was dealing with special education needs that were brilliant, but just behaviorally and emotionally, they were just regulated, right? And so I
Yeah.
wanted to find out a lot more about what SEL was. So I did that, came back to DC Public Schools, and went into a school building. I was administrator for a while. And so did that. And about 3 years in, Tony, I just said, man, I want to do my own thing. What we were doing for kids at that moment in time just morally did not sit right with me.
Okay.
I worked with K through 8. And so I had, kindergartner babies, first grade babies coming to me and saying, "Hey, I don't want to be here today." And I'm like, man, your beginning journey of education is just starting.
Right. Yeah.
Like how we talking about,
Why
you
we
don't want to
here?
be here. Right. You just got here. You just start you know what I'm saying? You just start learning how to tie your shoes. Like you ain't
Right.
did nothing yet. We ain't even got to the hard part.
Right. Yeah. I
You
agree.
still taking naps, right? But I felt like, culturally wise, we just weren't doing something right. And so for me, I was just like, I need to go and figure out what right is. And so got in a fellowship, Tony, based out of Memphis, Freedom Fellows. It was a fellowship based for 1 year. And we just traveled the country going to look at different educational models, man, whether it was private school, whether it was district school, whether it was charter, micro schools, home schools, any school that they have, I've seen them, right? And all while we're doing that, I'm just putting stuff in my bag, putting stuff in my bag, putting up stuff in my bag, and writing different things down. What's working for kids? What's not working for kids? Talking to parents, talking to school administrators,
Yeah.
talking to board members, right? Like, what are we doing that is really right? What are we doing that's really wrong? You can get a lot of, you could go to a school building and know when something's going wrong, and you can still take a lot from that too, right? And so I'm thankful for all of the different experiences that I got within that fellowship. And so doing my research, but also to understanding my roots, right?
Yeah.
And so South Carolina for me has always been home. You kind of hit on it, from Atlanta, born and raised in Atlanta, but my mom is from South Carolina. So McCormick, South Carolina. Shout out to McCormick, shout out to South Carolina as a whole. But spent a lot of time there. And still, have a lot of family there. So I've always kind of been in tune what was going on there educationally wise, right? As much as I would follow Georgia, I would follow South Carolina. And so, South Carolina has a huge push for more CTE schools, what we know is career technical education schools, right? And so as I'm building, like I'm telling you, I'm putting everything into my bag. What is a CTE school, right? More hands-on experiences. Kids are not truly forced to have to go to college, but when they leave our building, right, they'll have a piece of paper that say, "Hey, I can jump out in the workforce and go get it done." And also to go make some really good paper too, right? Like
Right.
play paper. Like we can go make some really good paper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so again, as I'm building, I'm like, man, I like this. I like this. I think this is what it is. And so South Carolina just felt like home for what we wanted to do and what we wanted to see for kids. And so, also to my great uncle, Croft Mims, he started one of the first African-American schools in the state, South Carolina, right? So again, it's just home for me. It has always been home for me. Like I said, I've spent a lot of the majority of my early years in South Carolina. And so with that and the hub for CTE education, the governor has a push for my authorizer, it just felt like home when I went in there, right? And so that's kind of the creation of what the Pivot Schools is and how it came to be about.
Right. So it's a lot in there, man. I'm gonna try to stick to no, but it's good. No. It's a lot, but it's good. Yeah. Because one of the first things we look at, one of the most the joyous times I had as a classroom teacher was what they consider the inclusion class. There may be another term for it, but that was one of the best times ever for me. I'm a math teacher, so it was understanding at that point. It was not about math, right? So math was a barrier, but going back to it's a barrier no matter wherever. But before this term of social and emotional learning was even a topic, as you were talking, I'm thinking back to those children that I had in the classroom, and it was one of the best moments ever. It was trying times, but just like you, it was moments where you saw them triumph over moments where they're just like, I'm sick of this math, and I'm sick of you too. And it's like you can't respond back to them like you want, like, why are you doing this? So, oh man, it's to hear what he's saying is kind of it's yeah, man, you pulling on the teacher side of me right now, even though I'm podcasting.
Yeah, but they go hand in hand though, Tony, right? Like you can't have academic success without SEL success, right? Or what we call emotional intelligence success, right? And so, I tell staff this, I used to tell my staff this all the time. Our babies come in with what we call an invisible backpack, right? We can't see what's in it, but we know something is in it, right? And so it's our job to really dig in there and pull out those different pieces that are preventing them to their academic success, man. And so it's super true. You can't come ask a kid to come in your building and jump straight to work without asking or knowing what's going on, what happened the night before that's preventing you from doing the work, right? Like every kid isn't bad. Every kid has a story, and it's our job to really truly understand the story. And it just goes back to be completely honest, relationship building, right? Like, and not just relationship building. Oh, I know your name, this, that, and the third. But like, long gone are those days. I need to know your TT. I need to know your grandma. I need to know where you playing football at. Where's the rec center? Like, and I need to be there. And I need to, for these kids to really work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing. And I think this may be episode 12 or something like that, but it's a resounding message that's coming, whether it is said, whether it's verbalized or not, it's relationships. That's something that I'm finding out. Every person that I'm talking to, from South Carolina to California to Ohio to Texas to Alabama, it's all about relationships. So if I'm hearing this, it must be, if it's from different people, y'all didn't get together, right? It must be true. Right? It must be true. So I kind of want to stay here on this topic of relationships, because for me, I traveled to different schools in Mississippi, and helping students, they don't care about the knowledge that I have at all. Like, if you're not putting something in their bucket, they're not going to do the work, even if they can do the work. And that part is developing something that you don't get. You heard the term of you don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
Ooh.
And we do that with adults, but that's so important with children too.
Yeah.
And
so I think, you kind of hit it on the head too, and it got me thinking about, why we started Pivot, right? Like, our big thing too is what are we doing every single day that is going to make kids want to come into our building, right? Again, kind of like what you said is like, they don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. What are you doing every single day that's going to make them come into your building? And for us, our approach is, through that CTE education, but also to project-based learning. We want hands-on learning, right? Like, and we want real world learning. That's another thing for us. We talk about innovation, and a lot of people will throw this word around, but like, what are you doing in your classroom or in your school building that they can directly take what they learned in fourth period, and by the end of the day, they can go use it in their neighborhood or wherever they're going, right? Like, we are truly a 21st century school for 21st century kids. Real world readiness is our thing. Engagement, right? Our sixth through eighth school, our middle school, I should say, is a career academy class, a career academy, point blank, period. What are you good at? What do you want to learn? Again, what's going to bring you in here every single day? So they'll get a career academy class every single day that they're in our building. And for us, we put the learning back on to our students. What it is, what are you good at? Right? Exposure is a whole new thing as well, too. A lot of the jobs that our babies will have, they're going to create. What are you good at? What do you want to learn? Right? How do you learn? All of these different things that they'll get in our career academy. So I totally agree with you. It's like, what are you doing for them to make them want to come into your building every single day? And so that's kind of, for us, pairing that SEL, that emotional intelligence, with the CTE creates that, right? We want a whole child. We want to make sure students are having fun. We want to be innovative, but also to preparing them for, again, the real world and what's out there. You still there, Tony?
That's okay. We bounce back.
Hey, we pivot. We got to pivot, baby. You got to pivot, baby.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Because it got me that time. So you were basically saying that your 6 through 8 is career oriented, and you want your students to come in with the focus to where they can take what they learned in one particular period and take that out and be able to apply it in their personal settings. So,
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. So, although we're kind of touching on this, but I'm still going to ask, how does combining SEL with career and technical education, help your students? We kind of touched on that. Like, how is it helping? In what ways have you seen that happen?
Yeah, I think for us, again, the exposure piece, right? Exposure plays a huge part in who we want to be and what we want to become when we get older. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so if you're not around doctors, lawyers, and all of these other different things, YouTubers, whomever, you won't think that it's possible, right? And so our job as teachers and staff is to expose our students to new careers. You may come in thinking that you want to do this, or I have an interest in that, but by the time you leave, you're like, man, I was exposed to this. This is really piquing my attention as well, too, right? And so I think that's one piece, but the other piece is just real world readiness, right? Those soft skills, that communication, working in teams, man, the emotional intelligence that you need to work on a team, right? And you work with people all the time. You've been in the school buildings. There's some people who are very brilliant, but there's some people who are emotionally just not savvy, right? Like, they can't handle it. And so we need that. You need emotional intelligence, man. And so again, with doing that research and truly understanding, what's happening, what is needed, most of your, pivotal people who are making change in this world are emotionally savvy, right? When to be quiet, when to hold it, right? Like, there's just certain things that you need to know how to move emotionally that we're going to give them. And so, those are a few things that we feel like have been really good for us and that are going to be really good for us in the future with our students.
Right. So the word pivot is just in my mind. We've been on 19 minutes, and it's just like, okay, this is a definition of pivot, because just listening to you, that's just what I'm hearing. And even to hear the first part of it, of how you build your tool set, it's something that you want to hear from educators across our world. Another component is, why did you choose to messed with this thing called AI, artificial intelligence, at the Pivot School, and how would it help students, you know, in their future jobs? Let's hear about AI.
Yeah, man. Listen, our big thing is innovation, Tony, right? And we don't run away from that. And so innovation could look a lot of different things for a lot of different people in a lot of different communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we just knew that AI is here, and it's not going anywhere,
Right,
right?
nowhere.
Nowhere. And so again, if you kind of go back and just listen to who we are, what we're built on, 21st century school for 21st century kids. A lot of the jobs that our babies will have, they're going to create, right? And they need to
Absolutely.
know how to
Yeah.
create them. And so
Right.
AI is one of those fields that, hey, if you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind. And we have done enough with leaving our kids behind already. And so we can't afford to do that. And so for us, AI was just that beacon of hope that we're giving to our students, but also too innovative enough that like, hey, this is where the world is going. We have to prepare our kids for doing that. Communities are changing, right? Environments are changing, and social education, and it should mirror what's going on outside. And so for us, again, AI was just that place and just that thing that we knew kids needed. And again, the great state of South Carolina, they're doing some really good things with AI, right? There are a lot of people that are coming to South Carolina that are doing some really phenomenal things in that world. Where we're going to be located, Meta, Facebook is coming, right, with the data center already. And so, yeah, we are just wanting to equip our students again with that 21st century knowledge that will prepare them for life outside of our building.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is, for us, the letters AI definitely means something totally different. The basketball player Allen Iverson. But for this new generation that's coming up, this is going to be a natural thing. And here's the thing about it. I told you I'm a math person. One of the things of having a YouTube channel is you got to check it to make sure if what you're doing is in line with the SEO, search engine optimization.
Yep.
So what I was doing was I was looking at the graph, and it hit me like, this is an 8th grade and Algebra 1 standard right here. You have to be able to analyze this part of the graph. I need to find out what's happening from the minute somebody clicks on this video to 3 seconds. What happens to the graph? If the graph is declining, there's a problem. But then you got to go and then look at, well, what's happening at that particular point? I'm giving out too much information right here, and I should be.
But listen, this is pivot. This is the pivot, right? Pivoting away from what education is into what it should be, Tony. Real world readiness. You just had a real world scenario from YouTube that can apply. And what kid doesn't know YouTube, right? Like that is what pivot is. It's all of that you just said in 2 sentences. That is exactly what it is. What we should be using, what we should be learning for our students and what they want to learn. Point blank period. So that was, I love that.
Yeah. So there's something coming down the line right here. I'm going to share this. One of the colleagues we worked together way back when. I don't want to put the numbers on there because them numbers are looking a little different. Double digit. She said teachers need and must teach students how to use. Okay. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, if I didn't have AI, I couldn't host this podcast in the way that I do. So AI is definitely.
And I love that too, because I think there's a lot of education that needs to be talked about around AI, right? It could be used for good, it could be used for bad, but technology in that same sense is the same thing, right? When it first came out, everybody was talking about all of these different things that you could do with it, but there's going to be people out there who exploit it, point blank period, right? And that's just with anything that we do. And so you are right. I think there also is and will be, knowledge around how we're using AI, how it can benefit not only yourselves, but your community, right? And so pushing our community forward.
Yeah, because here's the situation. If you look through history, right? So at one point in time, you had a person knocking on your door selling you encyclopedias. Now you're at a point right now that knowledge is at your fingertips, at everybody's fingertips. Knowledge is just being pushed out there, and the new knowledge or the new money. Here's the new money, right? Here's the new money. Here's the new money. New money is data. That's
there you go.
That's new money. Yeah.
There you go. And that in the right hands will make somebody a lot of money, right? And so that is the thing for us too, where we don't have to push college. We're not saying that you don't have to go to college, but what we're saying is that, hey, if you come in and do what you're supposed to do and you leave in 4 years with a credential or a certification that can go get you some money, right? Like you're going to be good, right? And so it's just a new way of thinking. And I would even say a new way, but it just needs to be pushed a little bit more as far as what we're doing as well too.
Oh man, this is good. What advice? So we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to wrap back around to this whole idea of AI. But what advice do you have for new leaders that want to make change in education? Especially in charter schools, or just I don't want to limit you, right? I said charter school, but you got the full range, sir.
Yeah. And I've worked in both. I've did district, I've did charter. I think that that's a really good question. I think for anybody, right? If you're working at a school, you're a leader of a school, first and foremost, know your community, right? The needs on the north side of town are completely different than the needs on the south side of town, right? Education is not a one size fits all, right? It just does not work like that. Again, I kind of spoke about that earlier, but different environments call for different plans of action, right? And so if you don't know your community, how are you going to make sure that you have the correct plan of action? And so, we used to do neighborhood walks when I was working in DC, right? Like you need to go see. You can't just live in this building and feel like you're going to make change. That don't work like that, right? And so go know this community, go knock on some doors, go say, hey, this is what we're doing. That village approach, point blank period. Right. We need to get, that's just kind of what that is as well too. And so once you understand, know the community, you start to get to understand the needs of the community, and then you can start formulating a plan to ensure that what we're doing and what we're saying is correct and built off the needs of the community. And for me, that word innovation, right? That comes from knowing the community, right? Because I can go say, hey, we could put this over here and it's going to be big and shiny and this is what we're doing because they're doing it across America. But the community may say, man, listen, we don't need that. We ain't never asked for that. It could be as very simple as, hey, we just needed a few more reading classes or 30 extra minutes on reading, right? Like we don't need that. And so long gone are the days of people coming into communities telling them what they need. Is more so of listening to understand, right? And so I think that's kind of the biggest key, man. It's just truly understanding the community that you serve.
That's good because it's I don't know if you're in my brain or what, because I'm thinking about, one of the things is for companies, what they do is an interest questions, whether we know it or not. If you click on an ad, they ask you several questions to qualify you.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, going back to what you said, having a conversation with the community so the community feels value, because they are value. If they don't feel value, they don't feel, and those stakeholders, you have to make sure you got the kids, you got the school, the staff, but that community can make or break you in some cases.
Yeah, because these are the people that we're serving. I tell people this all the time. We're in customer service, man. Without this community, we don't have a job. Right? Like point blank period. We here to serve. And you can't serve by not listening. But like you will get ran out. Point blank period. Right? Like you need to truly understand what's going on and make sure that you're bringing people in, because you want to be a pillar in the community. Right? You don't want to just be a school that everybody just goes to, but like, in order to make really good impact, you need to be a pillar, right? And that starts with bringing, like you said, stakeholders, community members, kids, parents, everybody in, because everybody has a say so.
So here we got a couple of people. Got Dr. Wells. She was on the show last week. She a data guru. Just tell you right now, but she just says I like that concept, community-driven innovation. And that's good. Thank you. Also, Miss Danita So let me tell you about her. You know, we worked together. She was a parent liaison.
Mhm.
And she was in the community. Like, she was going out in the community, like this lady right here. And I shout out to you too, okay? Because I watched her go from just being a parent to liaison to now having her specialist, and she's just doing some
Man,
great things right now. So I want to shout her
man.
out right there. Just perseverance and that I've saw in her life. So I want to shout you out. All right. So thank
You
you,
know
Mr.
that that Miss Denise sounds like my mom, man. I tell this story all the time too. So my mom is an educator, but not by trade, right? Like, she got an education because of me. I was so bad in elementary school, she had to start volunteering at the school, right? And so she was like, I just got to keep my eye on you, right? And so with that, she used to be up there so much. They were just like, hey, do you want a job? Right. And so she did another 12. She had just retired from the city of Atlanta and did another 20 years with Clayton County Public Schools in Atlanta, man. Yeah. And that's how she got into it. She was just like, I'm not going to let you, you know what I'm saying, go down this road. And so she made that commitment, and that's what it was.
Man, there's some good points right here. And as I'm listening to you, I hear your story, even from you know, it's one thing to say community matters, but it's one way to hear the story behind it. And I heard the story there of, you know, I I can connect with you about parents come up there a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I'm thankful mine did not. I got enough, you know, little redirection, but it's to hear it with your mom, how even what sometimes we consider to be quote unquote bad is something that turned out to be a very positive thing for
A
her and even
blessing.
for you. Yeah.
A blessing on both ends too, right? Like, that's, you know, because not only was she able to impact my life, but she was able to impact other people around me as well too, right? Like, everybody knew her.
Yeah.
Not just from, you know, her being my mom, but because, again, she was a staple in that community, in that school community, man. So yeah, she did an amazing job.
Well, shout out to your mother. So, what is one thing about being a school leader that people often get wrong or maybe overlook?
Man, that's a really good question, Tony. You know, I think, you know, I see a lot of leaders not being themselves in their role, right? Not bringing their whole selves
Mm,
into the role, right? They try to hide who they are and get, you know, engulfed in, oh, I'm a leader, but you're a person before that, right? And so bring that into that. People want to see who you are. People love to know who you are, right? Because once people know who you are, they can begin to trust you. They can believe to work for you, right? But if you go in not knowing who you are, you create and stir up a lot of different things. And so, yeah, lead with authenticity, man. I think,
yeah.
you know, you connect with your students, your staff, and your families coming from a real place, right? Coming from your core. You lead with your experiences, your values, your passion. I used to tell, you know, a lot of my, you know, other leaders, man, go do some work on yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and truly understand who you are before you try to come in and start telling people who they are, right? And so,
That's
you know,
good.
man, relationship building again is key. Not only, and you've led. Listen, it's not truly the kids. Let's be honest. It's not the kids, man. It's sometimes it's the adults, brother. Like, let's be all. Let's call a spade a spade.
Right.
It's the
That's what it is.
adults.
Right.
It's the
It is
adults,
what it
man.
is.
And so it's like, you know, understanding that, you know, as a leader, you truly have to understand who you are first. Look yourself in the mirror first. Truly take that time out to really dig into who you are, not only as a person, but as a leader. And so, you know, you want to lead with your experiences, you want to lead with your values, and you can't do that if you don't know who you are. And people won't, you know, they won't follow, they won't do it everything. People love authenticity. And so take that time to truly do the work on yourself, to get to know yourself. It'll truly make you a better leader.
Absolutely. And the thing about talking to multiple people, you started it off by saying your experiences connecting with the different and building your tool set, building your bag.
Mhm.
It's happening here. We're talking to a lot of educators from different parts of the country. And I'm reminded of an individual I talked to maybe I think it was last week or the week before, where he was talking about being yourself, being
Man,
authentically you. and
Man,
how that's important. And it's like I'm
man,
processing this stuff as we're
man,
talking. I'm gonna go ahead and say
man.
this. We're gonna have a part two. We're gonna have
Yeah,
a part two. I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now. There's a part
yeah.
two. We're gonna wrap this up in just a minute, but this is gonna be a part two.
Definitely
Okay.
bring me back, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would truly love to. And to that point too, right? Like, look how we're bringing in the mission of what Pivot is, the SEL piece. You're going to start. Our kids are going to start doing the work on themselves early. They're
yeah,
not waiting to do this work when they become
yeah.
a leader or when they have a title, right? Like, we want our babies to know who they are as soon as they walk into our building.
Right. And that's important because if it happens for us in our 30s or our 40s or our 20s, if they begin to have these shared roles and
Mhm,
start it earlier,
mhm.
now instead of this longer journey that we've had to get to where we are, they have it's a faster pace, it's a faster track to get to a particular place that they're going instead of just waiting and say, we're gonna make it by the by and by. No, look, listen, like maybe I didn't go to college.
Mhm.
If I go out and become a carpenter, if I come out and do HVAC, like
Mhm.
they making good
They
money.
making money, making great money, man. And listen, I tell people this all the time. I'm a fan of education. It
Yeah,
could be carpentry. It could be, my dad was a plumber, had his own plumbing business. So I seen what that looked like, and the money, like it's some money to be made. You understand me? And so we need to stop pushing, you got to go do this, you got to go do that. But no, go follow your passion.
right.
Go follow your passion.
Yeah, and it makes me think about an individual that I had in my class, um, and he was on the football team,
Mhm.
and he went on to graduate junior college. Well, he got an HVAC degree
Mhm.
certification. Well, the thing about this was, we stayed in the same town. My unit went out.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
called him up,
Yeah.
but the relationship, man, this is the point that
Mhm.
I'm going to. The relationship was that, of course, I'm going to pay him what he's due, but
Mhm.
it was still the relationship had more value than the money because I
Man,
knew
come
that
on.
he was going to provide me quality service because of
That piece.
the prior relationship.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's all we want, right? Like you said, I don't mind paying, but I just want quality work. And that started with a great quality relationship. A meaningful relationship is the word I like to use, right? Not just relationship building, but truly a meaningful relationship. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, we're gonna get. I'm gonna give you the 2-minute warning, sir, but we're gonna get a part two. We're gonna finish it up. I'm gonna give you the floor, and I'll close it out. Give me a couple of minutes, and we'll get that part two situated because there's a there's a synergy that's here
Yeah.
in this conversation. So, what I'm gonna do is you got the floor. Can you give some? You've shared a lot of advice, but can you share? To inspiring leaders who want to make a difference in their school or their community. You have the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I would leave people with this, and just young leaders or leaders in general, right? Young or old. Just don't take no for an answer. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to tell you no. I've heard no so many times I thought my name was no, right? But just don't take no for an answer. When you're called to do this work will take you places that you couldn't even believe, right? And so there's somebody that's depending on you, and you can't give up on them. You just don't know who you're going to impact and how you're going to impact them. And if you stop by saying no, somebody telling you no, you're not going to make the full impact that you need. And I would lastly just say, man, don't let fear stand in the way of you doing what you were called to do. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who want to teach. There are a lot of people who want to be in education, but they're fearful, right? Don't let fear hold you hostage to what your purpose is. I tell people, I never ran away from my purpose. I only had a choice to run to it, and that's just God telling me, right? And so, yeah, I would say, those two. And lastly, I will say this: lead with empathy. Our babies need it. Our communities need it. Truly lead in a way that's empathetic, to our babies and the people that we're serving.
Well, sir, I appreciate you. Again, I'm writing down. I got my paper. We got some more stuff we're gonna have to talk about. But I appreciate you coming on the show to add value. You definitely have done that in your own way, your authentic way, and I appreciate that coming on, sharing that. So thank you very much for coming on the Transforming Lives podcast. 50 educators from 50 states.
Man, I appreciate it, Tony. Thank you for having me.
All right. We're going to set you in the background, but don't go nowhere. All right. So, guys, listen, man, it's one of those moments where you just kind of, and all of my conversations have been just involved, but sometimes you just kind of have that, and it's like, okay, you got these many questions, but how can we continue this conversation? So that's something for to understand. Even with this series, I don't have a blueprint. Whoops. I'm sorry. I don't have a blueprint. But what happens is, as you have conversations, connect with people, that's what happens. Mr. Bowden, powerful conversation. So, guys, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure you got value. So, again, do me a favor. Please do this. Please share this with an individual. Also, go to YouTube, go to Transforming Lives podcast. Go ahead and subscribe, like this episode, like previous episodes. Just go in there. I'm asking you. I ain't afraid to beg. All right. I'm begging you. Go on there. There's value there from educators across this world. All right, guys, you all have an awesome time, and we'll see you again on this Thursday coming up. Y'all have a great one.